Welcome to God and Matter. I'm your host, Arlene J.M. Grant, and today's guest is Piankhi Zimmerman. Piankhi is a martial arts fighter. He's accomplished, and that's not all that he does. He also helps children through his Cyber Ninjas program and a few other things. That's who I think you are, Piankhi. But who are you?
I am a professional athlete, entrepreneur, a lifelong martial artist, and my other passions involve teaching, educating, and various arts, as well as some entrepreneurship.
Okay, so in terms of what you do, being an artist, a martial artist, being an entrepreneur, what kinds of things do you do specifically?
In terms of like every day, or
Yes, your everyday. What is your everyday? What makes you Piankhi Zimmerman?
so I love to learn, train, compete. So pretty much every day there's some kind of physical aspect of my life. So right before the coronavirus pandemic, really, right before the U.S. took notice and started acting towards things, I was actually supposed to have a professional fight at the Seneca Niagara Falls. And so I fought there recently in September, and I was supposed to have another one. So I literally was a week away from weighing in and fighting, and they shut down that. I mean, the UFC shut down their fights, the NBA shut down other games. Everyone started shutting things down and realizing that this was a serious issue. So, right before then, I was training usually, twice a day. If not twice a day, I'll put in like a long training time for like 3 to 4 hours. Dieting and just drilling, training, working out, and beyond that, when I'm not doing that, I'm teaching digital animation at Duke Ellington, or I'm working with my Cyber Ninjas nonprofit, which is a STEAM organization, a STEAM education organization. So we teach kids like various aspects of computer programming, game design, digital art, stuff like that. And our mission is to close the digital divide. So we work with that mostly in DC, but in the DC area. And not doing that, I'm working with my other business as a vice president of Terraform My Yard, where we do landscaping in the DMV area. And so it's a pretty busy life for me.
It sounds very busy. Thanks so much for giving your time today. So let's talk about a few things. First of all, you spent time, you said you last fought in September. So you spent time since September training, and a week before the event, it was canceled due to coronavirus?
Pretty much. I think the fight was officially put on in January. So I was getting ready. I was just kind of staying, active, training, keeping myself in good shape, because I might have had a fight in November, but that fell through. Didn't have an opponent come for that fight. So then in January, it was an official fight set for, I think it was March. It was probably set for like March 21st, I believe. Yeah, it was the third week of March. So literally the week before, actually the Thursday before, a week and a Thursday before that, I was given an email saying, "Hey, we're going to still have this fight come through. Don't worry about it. Sold out show. It's going to be great." And I was really excited because I put a lot of work and effort into it. I really, really wanted to show my stuff. And they put their fights on national TV. So the last fight I had was put on TV. So I was really, really excited to have another one that really dominate in this fight and get the win, obviously. And the very next day after they sent that email saying that it was going to be approved, they said, "Hey, actually, we have to push this back till June. So if you still want to fight, then let us know." So of course I said, "Yeah, of course I'm ready for it." But since then we've basically went to a fast track of like shutting down everything, quarantining, We're trying to switch our Cyber Ninjas after school program to an online one. So we're going to be using tools like Zoom, maybe Discord to like try to do online classes to get to still reach the children that we were interacting with and teaching.
So this is really interesting. How do you feel like mentally when you hear everything that you've been training for those 3 months and maintaining your overall wellness, as a lifestyle, but concentrated? What's the psychological impact for that?
Um, it's not that big of a deal as a fighter, just looking at like, okay, this fight was canceled, because it happens often. Even as a professional, you could be putting in that work, your opponent's putting in that work, somebody gets injured the week before. You can't do anything about it. And you have to just, either see if you can get another fight there or just schedule the next fight for the next event. The big thing that I'm worried about as a fighter, that the most mentally taxing thing is not simply the fact that I had a fight canceled, but worldwide, all fights are canceled. And we don't know when we're going to be able to get back into the cage again. We don't know when we're going to be able to get back into the courts, into the fields. We're kind of in limbo. So it's one thing to be like, all right, cool, this didn't happen, but there's always going to be another event. There's always going to be another fight, another opportunity. We're pretty much sitting on our hands. Like, we can train at home. I've been training at home, keeping in shape, doing, training conferences with my teammates, but like, it's not the same for one, and also so we don't know when the next one's going to be. Like, of course, they said we're going to push it back to June. That's when everything's expected to start slowly coming back into place. But is that really when things are going to be okay? I've heard that we might be in the same situation up until August. It depends on how soon we can keep this thing. And I've also heard that we might be here for like another year. So it's, that's the taxing part of basically sitting around and waiting for things to get better, and like basically reinventing that motivation to keep yourself in shape and keep yourself pushing. Because like, for a lot of fighters, one, you can't be in a fight camp 100% of the time. It's not, your body will crash eventually. You do need to stay into shape, but you can't be putting in that hard work the whole time. So it's like finding a fine line of putting in a lot of work without overdoing it, crashing your system. But then also that you don't know when the next thing's going to happen. But then like that, and that's where the anxiety for me comes in, where it's like, there could be a fight that like right in June, boom, everything's like kicks off. So we got to be ready for that. But then we could put in a lot of work and then nothing happens. So, and then we're pushed up till August and then maybe September. And it's like that unsurety is the kind of the taxing part of it. Because then normally it's like, all right, cool, this fight didn't happen. I had to happen several times last year, where fights fell through for whatever reason. And I just went on to the next, event, or just like trained and like, all right, cool, I got a fight coming in this time. So I'm going to set a schedule, set a plan to get ready for that moment. Because then when I had my fight in September, I was already in fight shape during that summer because another couple fights had fallen through. And I was like, still pushing forward. And then bam, the September one hit, I was already, the limbo is draining. I have to basically be like, all right, I have to keep myself in good shape and just make sure I'm ready to go hard, whenever I need to. But being a martial artist, that's not as difficult, but when you're around people who aren't athletes and who aren't martial artists the whole time, it's more difficult to make sure you're maintaining that yourself. You have to really rely on your self-discipline to like, I have to get this work in. I have to get my kicks in. I have to get my training and my exercise, do some kind of ab work. I have to keep myself, motivated. Because at any moment, you have to be ready. So we're used to that as fighters, but this is a very prolonged situation.
Wow. So do you have like a mental or a spiritual, emotional practice that you've employed that your body doesn't break down and you keep yourself healthy in the midst of this waiting period? And can you say more about this organization that you fight with?
So the organization that I was fighting for is called King of the Cage. They have a deal with Mav TV where they put their fights onto that streaming service. And I've had people from across the country see me on TV and be like, "Oh my God, I know that guy," you know. And I've had people locally in DC, actually, a relative of mine saw my fight. He hit me up on Facebook. I was like, "Hey man, I saw that fight. It was really good." So yeah, I was really, really grateful for the opportunity to fight for them, and I'm really looking forward to continue fighting for them, and any other really big promotion. But I guess mentally, what I do is I kind of it's just a form of meditation. I kind of bring my issues to the forefront. Like, oh, I need to be in shape. And I kind of remind myself of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing, what I love. Why am I doing what I'm doing? How do I get to doing it the proper way? Because for me, everything is mindset. So if my mindset isn't correct, I could do 100 push-ups, but they're not going to be done correctly. I'd rather do it the right way. So I have to make sure that I'm mentally prepared to do something in a way where I'm going to get the best result from it. So like the other week, I just started, there's this thing going around, it's like a viral thing going on saying 100 kicks for 100 days, right? And so when I'm chilling around with my family and we're all watching, TV or whatever, or just like relaxing, it's really easy to kind of get sucked into that. And it's kind of like, I can relax and be around my loved one, just kind of chill. But, I had to get myself motivated to be like, I have to get it out. And so I started thinking about, how did I become a champion fighter? How did it feel when I won those matches? How did it feel when I lost matches? Do I accept that, well, I just didn't work hard enough beforehand, so it's okay, whatever result I get? Or do I want to make sure that whatever result I have is one that I earned, is one that I fought for, is one that I made sure was going to happen no matter what? Because when you're a fighter, like, excuses don't help you. Whatever the call is what it is. If the referee says you lost, you lost. If the judges say you lost, you lost. In my last fight, the one I did in September, it was ruled a draw, and that was obviously, like I say, there's no excuses. So I didn't finish the fight. I let it go to the judges, and therefore, I didn't put enough into. So I did a lot. I did a lot of damage, and I assumed I was going to win. But because it was a home field advantage for the other guy, and he had a lot of people he brought out, it was a questionable call. I'll just say that. Anyone watching the fight was kind of like, "That's really weird." Like, you didn't take much damage at all. You beat him up a lot. But there's with different rules, and different ways things are judged. You don't finish the fight, you give it to them to determine how what the result is. So when I think about that, I'm like, okay, I can't allow situations like that to happen. I can't let anyone else take control of my destiny or of my situation. So in that, it's like, all right, cool. I want to be the best. Kind of like with Pokemon. The Pokemon, I want to be the very best I know I never was. Like, that doesn't happen from being complacent. It doesn't happen from accepting less from yourself. So you have to make sure you're re-energizing yourself every day. What am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? How did it feel when I won? How did it feel when I lost? What do I want? Do I want to be an okay fighter who's just like, this is a casual thing, or do I want to be the best that I can be? So
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned your family. What's that like? How's your fan? How is it to train and have these three businesses that you run with family? How's that working for you?
um well, I mean, families, they're all doing their own thing too. So it's good to have support system. Just like right now, my girlfriend's working heavily on things actually involving the coronavirus pandemic. And, we're kind of staying with my cousin right now. And um, she's working, she teaches yoga and stuff like that. So she does like a lot of online stuff. She also works, I think recently she got a job for the state. and one of my other little cousins here, and he's just kind of chilling. So the vibe is really good. So it's calm. You know, everyone's staying busy, and then we hang out afterwards. But with the businesses, sometimes I gotta like, you know, if so for one of my jobs we have essential work. So um, whenever we have jobs like that, I gotta leave, you know, and go do stuff and get dirty. I have to make sure that I'm clean. You know, when I get back, I have to make sure everything is clean, wash my clothes, you know, take a shower, don't touch anything because I've been out there. I gotta wear my mask and stuff. So the biggest issue, I guess, for me is that because I have to go, I have to make sure I'm taking extra precautions to make sure I don't get anyone else, you know, infected with anything. And I don't get infected with anything. And being a younger person, we're not really sure sometimes if we have something or not. So we're just trying to take all precautions to be safe, you know. Um, I'm seeing as one of my jobs, like it kind of requires me to be out there in the field still. That the one thing that I'm the most concerned with is safety. But beyond that, with the other things, it's so we're switching over to more. Everyone's doing conference calls. Everyone's doing, you know, Zoom videos and the like. So yeah, we're in a good we're in a good zone of like just, you know, being busy doing our own things. It's actually pretty been not as difficult for me in terms of like everyday life. But I know for some people it's like a lot more difficult. But we're you know we're focused on the important things.
Good. The important thing, focusing on the important things, is the proper approach, I think, to getting through this. Let me ask you a couple things. You said that you had to remind yourself about why you're a fighter. Why did you choose to fight? I mean, to to get beat up and to beat up as a profession is kind of interesting. How did that come about?
Um, I've been a martial artist at heart since I could ever remember. So I would say my first memories, um, like the earliest memories that I remember, are of watching martial arts, like kung fu movies, with my uncle and my dad. And so, you know, I guess a lot of my one of my cousins used to tell me, like, you know, we all were into the whole, you know, kung fu thing, but we grew out of it. And I was the only person that really did. For me, I wanted to be that kung fu hero. I wanted to practice and not just like, you know, train and, you know, be able to kick butt. Like I just wanted to learn more and be stronger and, you know, just excel at all those things. So I closely followed, you know, Bruce Lee and, you know, Jackie Chan and Jet Li and their film careers. I also got into Bruce Lee's philosophy and martial stance. So I started studying those things whenever I could. You know, I didn't actually have any formal martial training until I got to college. But before then, I was doing everything self-study. You know, so I would do Taibo classes. I would, you know, do whatever I saw that was out there. I would read books. I would do my own training as much as often as I could. And then when I finally had the opportunity to have martial arts instructors, I grabbed onto it, and I was more happy in that space of learning and progressing and pushing myself than I was doing anything else. And I love martial arts, but not simply as an art, but as a practice. And so I kind of always felt like, why would I want to push myself to limits if I don't get to test them at all? You know, like I'm a competitive person. I like to fight, not for the sake of hurting someone else, but for the sake of the fight. You know, that in itself to me is like a different type of beautiful dance. And I find my own peak nirvana in the best fighting situations where I'm going 110%, my opponent's going 110%, and we're in flow. And so, like, finding that happiness is for me kind of only really found in the cage or in the ring. You know, so I started doing competitions as soon as I could. I ran into my coach in probably like 2009, 2010, and I heard that he wanted to start like an actual MMA gym. So he was already kind of doing that, but not really official. And so I had a lot of striking background, but I didn't have a lot of grappling, and I wanted to get into mixed martial arts. My uncle showed me the first like one of the early first like UFC matches way back in the day before it was like mixed martial arts. It was just like karate versus boxing versus Muay Thai versus jiu-jitsu. Like everybody had their style. And then after that evolved later on to being like, okay, you need to learn a little bit of everything and find out where your strengths are. So I followed that. Later on when I got to college, someone was like, yeah, you kind of fight like the spider. And I was thinking Spider-Man, because I'm a huge comic head. So I was like, oh man, like, yeah, I love Spider-Man. He's like, no, like Anderson Silva, the spider, you kind of fight like him a little bit. And I was like, who's that? It's like, you don't know who that is? So then they showed me it. I was like, oh, this is UFC. This still goes on. And so I watched him. He was like freaking phenomenal. So I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is exactly what I want to do. I need to do this. And I kind of pushed my energy towards that. Eventually, it kind of just manifested into me running into Josh and then starting to train with him. I remember the first time when we had a conversation about it, I was like, yo, man, I've been looking to try to get into mixed martial arts. I want to get a fight. And this is when it was still kind of early. Like there were gyms around, but it wasn't like nowadays. Like nowadays, you can't throw a rock without finding another MMA gym. But before at this time, it was like, you had to travel far to go find one. So um, he was like, yeah, and I've seen you work. I've seen you do some striking. I've watched you do your kung fu stuff with your friends. Like, you got some talent. If you train with me, I'll get you a fight in a month. And I was like, really? I was like super excited. He was like, yeah, man, I got a Muay Thai fight coming up. If you want to do it, you got to listen to me. You got to do what I say. If I say jump, you jump. Say crawl, you crawl. And that means you have to take all your extra stuff and put to the side. Like, no going to the movies, no going to the club. You can't be hanging out with your friends. If you got like a family thing going on, you have to put it on hold. If it's not a funeral, like you can't be there. You got to be putting in the work. Because he was serious about me, getting to where I wanted to go. And because I told him what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I believe you because I've seen you work on it on your own. So we trained really hard. I put in like 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week training. And in a month later, I had my first like official like full contact fight. It was Muay Thai, and I did an amazing job. I won, beat the guy in the second round, and that feeling of like I worked so hard to get this, and then I got to show a bunch of people like that never left me, and so I just had to keep on doing more. So I did a tournament after that, won that championship. Did another Sancho fight. When Sancho is basically like kickboxing, but it has like throws. So it's like a good blend into getting into mixed martial arts. So if you're coming in from the striking standpoint, so or even from the grappling standpoint, like it gives you a combination of both. And so I started doing that and learning jiu-jitsu, practicing wrestling, and eventually that next year I had my first MMA fight. And it just kind of pushed me. It's kind of pushed me, like every time I fought and won, it pushed me. Every time I fought and lost, it pushed me because I wanted to get better and not just like prove anything to myself, but I want to be what's inside me. And what's inside me is a fighter. So I can't not be that thing.
That's beautiful. You want to be what's inside you. And I think it's also beautiful how you described it in art of a dance. And it's not that you want to beat people up, but you want to do what's within you. And you also want it 110% from your opponent as well as from yourself. That's a healthy approach to it. So with this MMA world that you're in, you had a victory in 2018. Did I read something about that? What was that about?
Yeah. So that was I had two really big victories, and then I had like a really huge loss. It was pretty sad. So I won my first, well, my only pro title right now, but I won a professional title in Delaware. and it was a really tough fight. And soon after that, I got an opportunity to fight in Brazil. So I was already training out of state at a different place, trying to get, learn more things, get ready. And so I was working with UFC fighters out in Wisconsin at Rupa Sport. And I got this opportunity to fight in Brazil. And so I was like, sure, yeah, I'll take it. I'd love to go travel to Brazil. And so my coach okayed it. We put in the training regimen. We get down there. They paid for our flight there and back. And it's beautiful out there. So I fought this really, really tough guy. I was the only American on the card, and I was the main event. So I fought this guy who was like, I felt like he was a super soldier. He was just insanely strong. And it literally took everything I had to take him down. And those are the types of fights that I really live for. So one cool thing about it was there was a vet, a UFC vet who was there, Damian Maya. He was watching. And also our referee was Mario Yamasaki. He's the guy who raised the hands of many of UFC champions. And I remember when I saw him one time in DC, I told myself, one day he's going to raise my hand in a fight. And years later, I'm fighting in Brazil, which is like the heart of the whole, MMA Vale Tudo world. And he's my referee. And I put on this amazing, display of just grit and toughness and focus. And I defeated my opponent in front of everybody, and all the people there were really, really loving it, embracing of just, having a foreigner there and just enjoying that we were having that kind of thing that was very, very positive. And Mario Yamasaki raised my hand. And at that moment, like there was nothing better. Like that was like I had reached another peak in my life. And it was awesome. But then soon after that, I had a friend who passed away. He was one of my closest friends. And he actually, the last thing he said to me was, good luck. Like, it was random too, because I hadn't really seen him in a bit because we both been busy. He was dancing, I was fighting. But we were like brothers, So the last thing he said was like, hey man, good luck on your fight in Brazil. So I was really excited to hear that, and that kind of helped give me more strength, And but yeah, so that was that in 2018, and then 2019 I had a couple of fights kind of get shot down, but then fought in September, and I did really well in that fight too. I finally pulled off one of my signature moves that I've been training and trying to get. I pulled the power bomb on somebody, and I'm not really a wrestling type of grappler, but I was able to lift someone up and slam them down. I thought it was pretty cool. So, yeah,
It's also pretty strong.
yeah, it takes what's more technique than anything else. But it's one of those things where, like, I'm known as being a striking based type of person. So I was definitely outstriking my opponent, kind of like keeping him at bay, and then he tried to go in for a takedown second round. I was able to stop the takedown, get a good knee shot in, got to stop the takedown, and I grabbed him around and lifted him up, kind of flipping his head up, and I slammed it down. It was a pretty badass moment. So like I'm always looking to like find those moments and create those situations where I can bring out the best of myself. So
That's awesome. It's important to want to bring out the best in yourself as well as in others. Now, you mentioned something about a setback. Was that the passing of your friend, or was it a fight?
yeah, that was the passing of my friend happened like almost, it happened weeks after that fight. So it that was really devastating to like our whole community, because like my coach, my coach knew him. A lot of my friends in the area knew him. He had like a lot of love and stuff. So like I guess for me it was kind of it's like a lesson in life. Like there's always some kind of balance in things, with great great things that come along, there's also devastating things that come along. And so I guess with this issue with the coronavirus, it's like really devastating period for everyone. But I'm trying to take that as in like, we're going to get out of this, and when we get out of this, it's going to be a really good thing at the end. We don't see it right now, but like we really don't see it. We don't know. Months ago we had the president saying that it wasn't a problem. We're going to be okay. Everything's fine. And now everyone has to wear a mask when we leave, or everyone's encouraged, like, please wear a mask, wear gloves, be protected when you leave your house, because it's now an airborne thing. Like there's more like terrible news we're finding out about this thing, and the whole world is trying to fight it. And I really am taking this. I'm trying to take this in a positive way. It's like, it's scary. It's devastating. A lot of people are jobless now. Like, it's affected my businesses. We do an after-school program. Well, when the schools shut down, and they're probably not going to open up back again this year. Some of them are going to try to, but I said we're still finding more information. So we've had to switch our modes to be more flexible. And but it's taken work, out of people in my business. It's taken contracts that we were supposed to have, working with kids. And that was just starting to really like soar, and so we're all in this like stuck position. So we have to stay vigilant and being, I don't want to say being positive. It seems kind of corny, but just kind of like being aware that, there's tough times in life. There's awesome times in life. And the most important thing is how you deal with it, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. If you deal with a good thing in a poor way, that can hurt you. Like, if you deal with a bad thing in a poor way, it's not going to make things better. So um, I try to take that and like be grateful for every moment that you spend with with your loved ones while you're in quarantine, with your loved ones online, even just through any kind of social media, whatever. Like, just take time to like appreciate, like, we're still here and we're still fighting, and we can fight. And like that's kind of like my mantra, like, to life. Like, I'm a fighter at heart here, in terms of martial arts, but I'm also a fighter in life. Like, I'm not going to allow things to just dictate, my my emotional state, my mental state. Like, I have to take charge of everything, and I say not overdo it, but don't underdo it. So find that fine line of doing the best you can do, and knowing when to sit back and rest, because that's also equally important. So um, I don't want to ramble, but
You're not rambling. You're not rambling. You're saying, things that are in your heart, and that's a good thing. So, question for you: Cyber Ninjas. That's SYBERNIJZ. Is that right?
NINJAZ.
Okay,
So
so that's Cyber Ninjas. CYBERNINJAZ.
yes.
So, how did you create Cyber Ninjas? This is your after school program. And how, if at all, are you able to connect with these children whom you formed a bond with prior to coronavirus shutting schools down?
So it's a STEAM education organization, and we started it like in 2014 with a friend of mine. We're actually working at a summer camp, and I was the head of a summer camp of a different company, and there were different practices that were happening there that I did not agree with, or was not really cool with. So um, I talked to my friend who was working under me, and I was like, I'd really like to have my own camp, because I think we could do this better, you know? And he looked at me and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, really? Like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah, man. I mean, you and me are pretty much floating this whole thing anyway. Let's just, if we work together, I'll be down with you. So we started working on logo designs. I had another friend of mine, I told him about it. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll help you with some of the business planning. And one thing led to another. We just started, making an annual summer camp, and it started to grow each year. And we wanted to do something also like during the school year, you know, in the off time. And so, like, well, there's a lot of need for after school programs, and we want to affect kids who don't have access to things, you know. So we centered a lot of our work after that around DC and doing after school programs in DC to make sure that we got kids um, access to computer education. Because a lot of kids have computers at home or phones or iPads or whatever, but they don't know how to manipulate them. It's easy to be a consumer. It's easy to be a customer. It's more difficult to be a creator, right? You know, everyone likes to watch a movie, but what does it take to make a good movie? Everyone likes to play a video game. What does it take to make a good video game? You know, everyone like, so we try to instill that in the students that we work with. Like, you know, we want them to be creative, innovative, designers, engineers. We want them to make stuff, solve problems, because allowing other people to make things for you and solve things for you is going to leave you out of the conversation every time, you know. And so we especially see that amongst the, you know, low-income communities, Black communities, brown communities, you know. And now we're seeing there's a, you know, there's a lot of blowback against the Asian community because of this coronavirus. And so it's like you got to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So we try to close the digital divide, right? And so we started doing after school program in DC, and we actually were just about to start one uh, in Upper Virginia, like right below DC, and that's when like things kind of went sour for that. School shut down. We didn't hear from anybody for a bit. When I was working at Duke, I'm still working for Duke actually, but like, you know, we're hearing that we probably won't be coming back to the school this year. So we have to do just distance learning from now on. So I'm kind of taking hints from that. And like, all right, well, Cyber Ninjas can do that for our after school program. And for our summer camp, we might have to do something similar because we're not sure if we're even going to be able to have a summer camp at this point, you know, or even if we are, like, we might have a third of, you know, of the students who come, because it's, you know, people aren't going to feel 100% comfortable sending, you know, sending their kids out or just going and being out. You know, it's going to take a while before everyone acclimates to things being normal. So we're trying to take it in stride and be flexible in our approach to things.
That's important, to be flexible, and bless you for what you're doing for these children. I know what it's like. It's also painful. It's not just a business aspect. I mean, I volunteer with kids and I tutor normally like every Monday in the inner city in like the poorest zip code in the state of Maryland. And I love that experience of reading and helping these children to read. And, you know, it's kind of nice to have that connection, and to not have it. I've been like, oh my gosh, I miss, you know, I can't contact her. I don't know how she's doing. I hope she's okay, you know, and I contact the reading partners where I volunteer through. And I'm just like, you know, I hope that we're helping kids. And now they're starting to try to put some things online. But there are a lot of children who are disenfranchised, who don't have the capacity to do distance learning because they don't have Wi-Fi at home, or they don't have a
Yes.
computer at home. So they're, you know, we are moving to this virtual presence, but there's still this divide that's going to disconnect a lot of people. So I'm hoping, you know, through, I write children's books. I don't know if you know that too, but I'm hoping to be able to raise awareness and raise some resources to be able to get help for children. So you, people like you who have Cyber Ninjas, can train these kids who may not have that access and that luxury, you know, to be able to have education to take place and to know that people do care about them, because these kids are so disconnected right now. You know, yesterday I was walking, doing an essential errand, and I had to mail something, and I went to the post office, and I noticed there were a lot of people without masks on. And I stopped and said, hey, are you aware that we're supposed to be wearing masks now in public? And the person was like, kind of sighing and frustrated and unaware. And I thought, how difficult is it? People are not getting messages. People are not knowing. And in the African American community, there's such a disproportionate amount of people who are impacted. And I think that's a lot. And it's not saying everyone in the African American community is, disconnected, but there's a lot of people, brown, beige, whatever, who are disconnected. There are also Caucasian people who don't know, who are walking around unaware. They don't necessarily know what news source to trust. And as you said, the president gave misinformation to people. I read today that he has stake in the drugs that he's been pushing that have not been proven to work with coronavirus. That's corruption in and of itself. So maybe some people are like, you know what? I don't even care. And some people are like, there's but so much I can handle right now.
Yeah.
So people like you, the Cyber Ninja, who is out there helping people, that's a light. And I thank you for shining your light and wanting to. And I hope that you're able to connect with your kids, maybe even mailing them things, in whatever way that you can. Now, what is your moniker if people want to check in and find you doing your MMA fighting? How can they find your work? I mean, there might be some recordings online. How do they
Oh yeah.
connect with you?
Oh yeah. I'm actually working on a new highlight reel now, because my old one is pretty much all amateur career stuff. So literally I was doing it late last night, working with some of my friends who were helping with like special effects and stuff. So I love comic books and whatnot. So I'm actually putting that online soon. But you can find me on YouTube. Just look for, so my fight name is the Nappy Ninja. And the Nappy Ninja is a comic book character I came up with. And I was looking for a fight name like early on, even before I started fighting. I was like, what would I call myself? So a lot of people have like the bull, or I was thinking, well, tigers are my favorite animals, and so I was like, maybe like tiger. And I was like, this is it's kind of corny. There's nothing. I don't want to be something that's regular. I want to be something that's like that people can like hear and like they remember it. So I was like, oh, this comic book character have the Nappy Ninja. What if I'm the Nappy Ninja? It's like that's me too. And so I use that, and it's funny when people hear it, they start laughing a lot of the times because I think it sounds silly. And it definitely like it grabbed your attention, and then people would see me fight, and then they'd be like, oh, that's the Nappy Ninja. So you can find me on YouTube, just typing that in. You can find me on Instagram, the Nappy Ninja, or Twitter, same thing, just at the Nappy Ninja. And Facebook, Piankhi, aka the Nappy Ninja Zimmerman, and there's fights online.
So, what'd you think of Piankhi Zimmerman? First time I ever interviewed an MMA fighter. Piankhi shared a lot of interesting information. He said something about the art of the dance that takes place in the ring. And it's the first time that I ever thought of MMA fighting as being something that could be beautiful. And that's not the only thing that's beautiful about Piankhi. Piankhi has a concern for children. And in working with his cyber ninjas, the Nappy Ninja, as he's coined himself, has made a path for children to become empowered. I did follow up with Piankhi to discover that he has brought his program online, which is awesome. And he continues to train for an MMA fight that hopefully will happen when it's safe and when he can properly dance once again in the ring. Please look up Piankhi and follow his efforts to make the world a better place. Now this interview is different because there's a part 2 that's coming. So until then, stay tuned for part 2, which will air sometime in coming weeks. Maybe when he actually does get a fight and he's able to do the work that he's been training so hard to share with the world. Our guest Next time on God and Matter will be Caesar Cavelli. Caesar is a young rapper who I came across from a Devin Franklin live on Instagram. Devin Franklin does these lives frequently on Instagram. There was something about Caesar Cavelli that struck me. It wasn't his tears, it wasn't the sincerity of his heart, but it was something in his spirit. So I contacted him and invited him on the show. I hope that you'll listen to his episode as we talk about many things, but also the anticipation of his mixtape, as they say nowadays. Thanks so much for listening. God and Matter is produced by ArlieSpeaks Media, LLC. To learn more about God and Matter, please go to our website, godandmatter.com. There you can find out more about me too, Arlene J.M. Grant, your host. God and Matter is distributed by Castbox.fm and available on YouTube under our ArlieSpeaks Media, LLC channel. Please subscribe. Until next time, be well.